it gives me a better sense of who's with me and who isn't. Um, so, oh, that's a good question, Gay. Why the 40 years? We're gonna talk about that. Um, okay, so let me just. All right. Apparently, everyone else is having a bad hair day whose camera is not on. So, okay. Uh, okay, so let's start with the elephant um, in the room, which is that I've announced obviously yesterday and today the succession plan for the temple, of which I'm definitely a part. Just to sort of give you the actual structure of the whole thing is that I will continue as senior rabbi until September 1st of 2024, which is about another year and a half. And then I have agreed to work, and this might change, but I've agreed to work every other quarter, 3 months on, 3 months off, for at least an additional 2 years. Um, and if everybody's happy after that, maybe we'll keep rolling. But if not, then I will at that point become Rabbi Emeritus without responsibility, without prescribed responsibilities. But I have no intention of not being a part of this family, of not being around to help. It's just that, as I tried to indicate in the Shabbat message, I'm getting to the point where if I keep at it for more than a year and a half or two, I think I will burn out and not be my best self. And all of you deserve better than that. Um, Senior rabbi of a place like Wilshire is not a job one does halfway or does because one just wants to get paid. I think that will show every time. And so this was this structure is meant to really create a smooth transition. It's meant for me to be able to continue fundraising so the temple doesn't fall off a cliff when I retire. From as the senior rabbi, I'll still be able to encourage people to support the temple during those next 2 years, help the new senior rabbi create relationships that will be important. And emeritus rabbis, they're like I'll never ever not be a part of the congregation, but I can't quite define what that will look like beyond the next three and a half years. At which point I will be 66, almost 67. So I hope that it kind of explains the thinking at least. There's a firm we've hired called DRG out of Washington, D.C. They specialize in searches for executives for not-for-profits, and they're the best in class. They're really good at what they do. They've called me a couple of times for a couple of synagogue jobs in Manhattan that I've had no interest in. I had a long chat with them yesterday. They're in LA visiting, and they're meeting with staff. We have a committee together. There will be ample, bless you, Risa, there will be ample opportunity for everyone in the congregation to get to know the final couple of candidates. And we're going to do this in as menschy and thoughtful and considerate way as we possibly can. We're very, very lucky. Those of you who've been around in synagogue life, and Risa knows this better than anyone, most of these transitions happen begrudgingly, difficultly, often as a result of some scandal. We're very fortunate that we have the opportunity for a healthy and beautiful handing off of the baton.
Wait, did I miss something here?
Mark?
What? This is some work of fiction that I'm listening to now.
It's going to be okay, I promise. And actually, people have said, well, what about our relationship? And my answer has been, we might actually have time for more of a relationship as this thing rolls out, because even the people within the congregation who I'm closest to, maybe we get to have dinner once or twice a year, maybe, because of all those obligations. So I really do believe it's going to be good for everyone. And honestly, other than my fear of poverty and homelessness, which is not rational but is real, I feel great about it. I really do. And let's take some questions if there are any. If anybody has any questions, concerns, or things I might have left out, Karen, go ahead, but unmute.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say, obviously, congratulations. I think we should all accept with grace, your grace, and appreciate so much what you have given. And as in real love, I believe that we wish each other luck and love and let people go on with their lives. And it doesn't mean that we don't love you, because this is very difficult, very emotional. I feel the emotion. What can I say? But we all love you and wish you the best. You and Betsy deserve it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I also have to say, I really think the congregation deserves it, or will in another few years. I'm starting to feel the early pangs of burnout. And I've seen burnt out senior rabbis. They're horrible for the shul, and they're horrible for their family and themselves, and it's just not right. You're right, Karen. If you love people, you don't behave that way. But if you're burnt out, you do. So I appreciate that very much. And nobody's dying. Really, no one's sick.
It's all for the best reasons.
Yeah, it's all for the good reasons, and there is nothing hidden in what there's nothing hidden in this at all. Everything I said in that Shabbat message really is the reason that I made this decision, and I made the decision. It was not made for me. Someone asked if there's an internal candidate. I believe there will be at least one internal candidate, but that candidate will be a part of the process like every external candidate. I think that's very important in case that candidate is chosen, so that it doesn't look like we were self-dealing in any way.
So this irrational fear of homelessness, is that so irrational in terms of where you're going to live?
Well, we're going to stay in LA because our kids are here part of the time. And we really love our kids, and we have a very tight little family. Although if the kids moved, who knows? And as you know, Mark, because you've been so helpful to us, we're building this little house in Joshua Tree, which is a place I really love and feel very at peace in. And also, it's very strange. And maybe, I don't know, we've got some writers on here. David, you're a writer. You'll know what I mean, I think. It's a place where I feel both very calm and extraordinarily productive at the same time in terms of writing. So there's something about it there that gives me a little bit of added flow, which at a certain age is wonderful, as we all know. And sorry. So we will be part-time Joshua Tree, part-time LA. But if the kids end up making their lives elsewhere, maybe that part-time LA will be part-time someplace else. I really don't know. I do know it's an awfully expensive place for young kids to get started now. So we'll have to see.
Well, Rabbi, when I get my break, if you need any help with anything with those kids, when I got to town, I will be there for you in a heartbeat.
Thank you, Donna. I want to play drums in your band when you're a famous singer. Okay?
Oh, come on. They always say I sound like Babs. So
okay. Let's see. Gary, go ahead.
I was going to say three things. One, thank you for all the years. It's been great seeing you grow in the position and support all of us all these years. DRG picked me up at one point about 10 years ago in my career. They're a great search firm. And three, if you could negotiate my retirement package like yours, Please help me out. The trouble is I'm negotiating with myself and it's not working.
Yeah, well, when you really have the other party's best interest at heart, it's pretty easy to work out a deal. And I really did not want to leave the temple without fundraising revenue. And I really did not want to leave you and the many other long multi-generational families. I did not want anyone to feel suddenly untethered, to the temple or to me. So the long runway was really, I think, best for the temple. And it was my suggestion because I really do care. I really, really care. So that's why the long runway.
May I
Okay.
ask a question about fundraising, Rabbi? What you're doing?
Wait, Donna, there are a few other hands up, and I just want to make sure that everybody has their chance.
Yes.
Barry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to ask you, you're not going to pull a Tom Brady, are you?
The first time or the second time?
Well, doesn't matter.
Um,
I don't think you will.
Well, I don't intend to, Barry, but if the new person arrives and doesn't work out or
Okay.
has some kind of emergency, that's another reason why I felt it was important to stay on the team.
All right. Or a Michael Corleone. I tried to leave, but they kept pulling me back. There's a lot of characters out there that have that reputation.
But I will not jump back in full time uninvited.
But you're not pulling out full time either.
No. This is a contractual commitment I've made every other quarter for at least 2 years.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything we can do to help?
Yeah, like a concert or something.
Thank you. I think that there will be a time to celebrate what we've all done together. I think it's a little premature. And I also think that it would be optimal to have the new person determined, not necessarily in place, but determined. So I think we need to give it about 6 months. I appreciate the question. The answer is yes, but not yet.
Can I ask you something about Joshua Tree?
Yes.
Do you feel closer to the universe out there because of the open sky and the clear view of the heavens? Because I keep searching for that. I try to go out there, and every time it's been cloudy. But, I keep trying. I miss those. From growing up years ago with clear skies.
So let me introduce you to something, Barry. This is called a cell phone.
I have one with the Search for the Universe.
It has a weather app on it.
Yeah.
And it actually tells you whether the skies are going to be clear or not on any given day in any given location. So
we went to the Anza Borrego desert a year or so ago, and we couldn't see much.
Well, I love it. We'll get off of Joshua Tree in a second. I also love it when it's cloudy, when it's windy, when it's hot, when it's cold, because of the way the light changes on the rocks.
Sure.
So there's a lot of beauty there, regardless of the sky.
Well, I remember being in the desert with you in Israel, and how much you seemed to enjoy it there too.
Yeah. Eric.
The thing about Joshua Tree that I always loved is the silence. When you walk, the only thing you hear are your footsteps on the sand, and it's so rare in Los Angeles and other places.
That's exactly right.
If you're lucky, it's a clear night. You can see every single star.
Yeah,
God
is.
Help you with it.
The quiet, the wind, it's just extraordinary. And the park is the size of the state of Rhode Island. So even on a busy weekend, if you walk 10 minutes into the boulders, you don't see another person, and definitely not another Jew. So let me just do a quick check. Risa, and then Rebecca.
I just want to take a minute in public to wish you as happy an emeritus situation as Stanley has been enjoying. He also left at age 64 exactly. Of course, we didn't take off for Joshua Tree, we took off for Israel. But even with the 12 years in Israel, he went back to Atlanta once a year as a scholar in residence, and he's scheduled to do it again in May. I don't know if he's going to make it this time, but he's scheduled. We'll see. And you know that his volunteer work here at Wilshire Boulevard is because of his love of the rabbinate and his love of the relationship with people and his desire to study. Yes. And that little bit of teaching gives him a reason to study, which is what he does most of the time. And I wish you all the best. And the grandchildren, Kanai Horror, they should come in numbers like ours did.
Yes.
It's wonderful to be able to be with them.
For me,
So much more.
I really want to get back to this.
Somebody needs to go on mute.
For myself, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So much.
Hannah, can you mute everyone, please, except Risa?
So much more time with our grandchildren than Stanley ever had with our children. Although he brought them into the temple all the time, and they considered the temple an extension of their home, and they taught Hebrew from the time they were 13. They were involved, but that's the way they saw their father, the rabbi. And the grandchildren,
the best.
The best part of it, I wish you many, but I hope that you will continue to study. And as you know, Stanley has been writing and writing and writing, and it's a healthy time of your life. I wish you and Betsy all the best.
Thank you. You're both a great model. You really are. Rebecca, and then Merle.
You will be the third rabbi that I've been with that has transitioned to something else. And I must say the first two were really uncomfortable. The transition was really uncomfortable. So I'm very appreciative of the structure that you've laid out for your transition. I think that will be very helpful for anyone who hasn't gone through this before. So thank you.
Oh, that's good to hear. We spent a lot of time trying to do it right. So thank you. Any other hands up? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Merle, of course.
I just want to say that I've been at Wilshire since I was 4 years old, and I have seen everything has always gone in the right direction for the community. I met you the day you started in the parking lot after the camp buses left, and I've seen nothing but incredible growth. And I know that you're not going to leave this congregational community in a bind, and you will always be there for everyone in whatever way you can. So I sent you an email earlier. I know it'll all be good for everyone.
Yeah, that's absolutely my intention. It really is. So yeah,
I feel that way. They've only been here a year.
Yeah,
I've only been here a year, and I've missed all those years that they've got with you. And I just want to say, you've touched my life and changed my life. Your attitude, your persona, your humility, your generosity, to accept people, even when they come from a broken home, no matter what you go through, you learn, you grow, you live, but your love is unconditional like God's. And I'm just grateful to know you. And we're going to miss you when you go, but I want to do a concert. I didn't go to Juilliard, but I got to audition for Calvest, and they don't let no one audition there to get joy. And I want to play a fundraiser for the temple. I didn't go to college, but
we'll get to it.
Okay.
We'll get to it, and then
We'll sell tickets.
When you're I told you when you're famous, I'm going to play the drums or at least be a roadie.
I'm already famous.
Okay, how do we feel about moving on to some Torah study? Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just got to take one more quick look. All right. So let's get to it. Because that should never stop.
Never.
Now, those of you who are using a book or a phone, we're in Parashat Bishalach. Okay? Bishalach. And I want to look first at Exodus 14, verse 15. Exodus 14, 15. Okay. Everybody there? Where's my man, Marty? You unmute, Marty.
Marty is here.
I want to go verses 15 through 17, and then we're going to dig into it a little bit.
And
Rabbi
didn't say
Lynn just
anything
showed up.
before,
I'm
but
sure she
clearly-
would like to say
Wait.
a very fast hello.
Who just showed up?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Lenny. Okay. All
Are
right.
you ready?
Go ahead, Marty.
Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. And you lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it, so that the Israelites may march into the sea on dry ground. And I will stiffen the hearts of the Egyptians so that they go in after them. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his warriors, his chariots, and his horsemen."
Okay. Does anyone see a difficulty with the syntax of these few sentences? I'll kind of read it in a way that might help you. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward, full stop. And you lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it." What's the problem?
May I say what I think?
Yeah, who's there?
Jonah. I think that the Lord is saying, don't wait on me. You have the power, I have the faith, just go for it. And they were waiting on the Lord and waiting for him to do it. And we have the power within us to do it.
Okay, so for sure, freedom involves agency and like enough looking outside of yourselves. Go ahead, Lorraine.
I was going to say, it's so interesting that every year we read the Torah and you find something different. And this year, when you just repeated that verse, my thought is, well, why they wouldn't cry out to Hashem, because he has already expressed his magnificence with all this miracle, with all the plagues and all these actions and all this, and why they wouldn't. And it just seemed to me for a second that it was like, oh, well, now you're on your own, a kind of thing. I don't know if it's a strange.
Well,
I wonder if anybody else feels that way.
There is definitely a shift here, and you're right. It's read so frequently, people kind of miss it. I remember when my daughter was 22 years old, and she was done with college. She was home. She decided she might want to go into real estate. She got her license. She hated it. And she came home, sat down at the table one day and cried and said to me, "Adulting is hard." Adulting is hard. First of all, the fact that she created a verb I thought was amazing, but adulting is hard. Here's a people enslaved for 400 years. And now they have freedom from slavery, but they don't know how to exercise agency. They don't know what to do with their freedom to. We've talked about this so many times. There's freedom from and freedom to. So yes, I think that's a very significant shift where God now says, why are you looking at me? I freed you. Go do something with it. But I think I think there's another layer, even deeper. And the clue I can give you is word order, syntax. How might we have expected this sentence, this verse to be written? Risa?
The other way around.
Read it the other way around.
Why do you cry out to me? Lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it. and tell the Israelites to go forward.
Bingo. Wouldn't
And
that make more sense?
Yes, except this is what gives Nachshon the
I know.
ability to go forward.
But Nachshon's not in the Torah.
Right. But we know
Right.
it existed.
Right? So if we just stay within Torah itself, the syntax seems to be wrong. We would have expected God to say, okay, Moses, stop crying out to me, lift up your rod, split the sea, and tell the people to go forward. But it's the opposite. Go forward, and then the sea will split. And there's a huge sermon in that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even for a rabbi who is thinking about his future retirement. So let's hear some, let's see, Pamela, go ahead, unmute.
Unmute, lower hand. So my thought is, not that it's, shouldn't have emphasized it that way. What I would say is that it's that adage of God helps those who help themselves. Like you could almost look at this as like, here's the really big nugget of that, meaning you have to get started and I'll make sure it goes smoothly for you. But I am not going to give you your agency. This is something that you have to find within
I am
yourself.
not. No, you're right. Your point is right. But that last sentence is actually, I gave you agency.
Mm-hmm.
And
right. Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you give agency, now I'm speaking in the largest sense, it cannot be taken back. If free will is literally free will,
right,
it can't be removed. I'm speaking in the meta sense.
Yeah.
You can put people in jail for crimes and things. That's not what I mean. I mean, definitionally what it means to be a human being.
So to me, that's the sort of, as I've been studying with you and other rabbis, I feel like the Torah is like the original self-help book. We've got this problem. Well, you have the answer already within you. If you take the steps and you align in this way, then yes, it will work out, basically.
Because this leaves the Israelites with a profound question. Go forward, like what direction? The Egyptians are behind us. The sea is in front of us. What does that mean? Go forward. When we're to mix metaphors between the army and the ocean, what does that mean to move forward when you're between a rock and a hard place?
What can I relate to that?
Right? Okay.
Well, and I think it also, in terms of the self-help book theme, it dawned on me, isn't that how life always is? Like if we look at your present circumstance, right? You say, I've got this thing behind me that I know I'm ready to transition from, but the way forward is maybe a little less obvious, right? And so I'm not too much younger than you, so I'm sort of in a similar place career-wise. And so I'm projecting a whole lot of myself onto it, but
as you should. That's what Torah is for.
Right. So I'm looking at it like, here's life. The life says, you want to leave where you're from, but maybe it isn't so clear. But go forward anyway, take that risk, have the courage, and it will work out. It's the faith that it will work out.
It's reminiscent of what God says to the first Jew. Lech lecha, go. Me'eretz moledetcha, from the land in which you were born. Mibeit avicha, from the home of your father. To a place asher ereka, to a place that I will show you. It is unidentified. Penina, unmute. Lori, you'll be next.
Okay, I'm talking from practicality. The time was right. It was a full moon. The weather probably, by the way, they did an experiment and they showed it on TV, that if you take an aquarium full of water and you blow a big, strong, like wind into it, the waters did split, kind of like went to the sides. So I think the fact that it was the middle of the month and it was a full moon, the fact that it probably was a good weather or whatever it is that they saw, or bad weather that they saw the water or whatever it is that was going on. And the time was just time. So so this is, the message was, do it now. Now, and if God didn't say it to him, then that's what he heard.
Yeah,
Because that's what he saw. And that's when they picked up to go. And that's what makes today, we go according to that month, the first of this month to be the beginning of the year, because that was the time that they marched. So the full moon was a big thing, especially after getting the plague of the darkness.
Yeah, and it's spring, of course, also, which is
exactly
a sensible time for the first year of the month.
Yes.
Lori.
I think apropos to the question and your comment before about your daughter who sat at your table in tears saying it's hard adulting, it's really the same thing. She's been given an education and agency over herself, and our children, whether it's your daughter or my kids, you can't go back. You can't, Rabbi, you can't fix it for her or determine their course. And it's the same thing with Moses, really.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with everyone.
Yes, it is. And Merle, and then I want to add another layer to this. Go ahead.
That, God has told everybody what to do and how to do it up till now. And it goes along with the adulting thing. Okay, you have to do it now. I can't keep telling Moses what to tell you to do. It's, you've got this future in front of you, and none of us know what the future is going to be from 1 hour to the next. And just get up there and do it already. I mean, I can't sit here. I provided you with your lives up until now. Now it's time for you to move on and let Moses move on, or let Moses be with you, whatever, but you have to figure it out on your own at some point.
Yep. Okay. Now I want to give you an additional layer, which Risa talked about a few moments ago. Just briefly, what is Midrash? So the Torah, as we know, is relatively terse in terms of its language. Not a lot of multisyllabic words, not a lot of long sentences. It's pretty stubby language. And it leaves out a tremendous amount of detail. Partly because, remember, this was an oral tradition. This was a story meant to be told and heard, not read. And if you're telling a story and there's too much detail, it's very hard to transmit from the listener to the next listener. So there's a whole world of literature written roughly, gross oversimplification, 1,000 years after the Torah, called Midrash, which are rabbinic folk tales meant to bring further depth and understanding to the Torah by filling in details that don't exist in the Torah. By the way, lots of people, some of the more famous of these midrashim, when you tell people they're not in the Torah, they can't believe it. Oh, come on. It's in the Torah. And it's actually not. It's this next layer of commentary written by the rabbis to bring more understanding to the text of the Torah. I'll give you a simple one that most of us learned when we were small children in Sunday school. Abraham becomes the first Jew. Why? Because he owned an idol shop. He sold idols, and he left his father, Terach. He sold idols in an idol shop, and he went out for lunch and left his son Abraham in charge of the idol shop. Dad comes back from lunch, and all the idols in the shop are broken to bits and pieces except the biggest one, which has a big stick in its hand. And Abraham's father says, "What happened?" He said, "Well, the big idol smashed all the small idols." And his father says, "Well, that's impossible. These are just made of stone and wood. They don't do anything." And Abraham then says, "Well, why do you worship them?" And that's the rabbi's folktale about what gave Abraham the idea of becoming a monotheist. It's not in the Torah. It's made up, but there's some real wisdom in it. Now, here is the midrash about these three sentences that Marty read for us. They're about a character named Nachshon, Nachshon, Nachshon. Now, according to the rabbis, the Egyptians are behind them. The sea is in front of them. And they're told to go forward, and they don't. So Moses raises his rod. Nothing happens. He does it again. Nothing happens. And the Egyptians are getting closer and closer to close, and it's going to be a bloodbath. So this character, Nachshon, just starts walking into the sea. He walks into his knees, nothing happens. His waist, nothing happens. He walks in up to his neck, nothing happens. When he walks in past his nostrils, which is the Midrash's way of saying he fully commits, he passes the point of no return. That's when the sea parts. In other words, we only achieve the benefits of freedom from if we fully commit, even when it means fully committing to the unknown. And I think about this a lot lately because many, many years ago, some of you know this story. Many, many years ago, there was a young man in the congregation, a brilliant young man, whose brother died by suicide. And this young man was and is a very, very gifted psychiatrist. And he was broken by this. And he came to see me, and I really didn't know what to do. I was maybe 27, 28 years old, and I said, I really didn't know how to help him. It didn't have the requisite life experience. So I said, well, how about you come to my office every Friday afternoon and we'll study the Torah together. Then I was approached a week or two later by an elderly guy, great guy, named Bob Wunsch, who was retiring after many, many years in Hollywood as an agent. And he came to me bereft, depressed. Steve, I've got to stop, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose so much, the money, I don't know what to do. So again, because I was 27 or 28 years old and didn't know much, I said, well, how about you come study Torah with me on Friday afternoon? So these two guys came every Friday for months. And this was one of the first Torah portions we studied. And these three sentences were among the first we studied. And then I taught them about Nachshon. And Bob Wunsch said to me, this had to be 35 years ago. He called me the next day and he said, Steve, when I thought about Nachshon, I realized that if I didn't fully embrace my retirement, despite my fears, if I didn't fully embrace it, I would never achieve the liberation and meaning that it will hold for me. And now this is Bob. I'll never forget this. I'm quoting him now. And when I realized that, I felt held and comforted in the arms of God. And that's a very powerful way to live. Up here, right? We all know couples who never should have gotten married, and it's a blessing they got divorced. But we all know couples who've had struggles and problems, but leaned so heavily into each other, so fully committed, that they have come out the other end liberated and in a deeper kind of love. And these, as Pamela was saying, there really are two choices here. And I've always considered these lines to be among the most significant in the Torah. First you walk, then the sea parts. So I offer that to you. Now I see we have raised hands. Hold on, because I can't get you all on one screen. I don't see the raised hands, but who's got a raised hand? Anybody?
I did, Rabbi, always.
Okay.
When you say walk, it's like between a rock and a hard place where you have to walk with the unseen, unknown. I think that's the best place to be because you learn to walk with God.
Yeah, beautiful. Dana?
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to share my experience, which is that you get to these forks in the road in life, whether it be you now or your daughter at 20, whatever. And sometimes you see what the different roads are. Sometimes you don't, but you have to pick a road. You have to go forward. Even if you don't know what's down the road, you have to commit to the road. You have to go down the road. And it's not until you're further down the road that you pick that you see so many more options down the road, so many more opportunities, ideas, ahas arrive, but they won't arrive until you actually venture down that road. So, and I also wanted to add, because you were talking about your 27 or 8-year-old self, and I knew you at that time, and I was in your study group your first year you were at the temple, and you always have had a way of taking the Torah, which when I entered your study group, I had no idea could be relevant to me and my everyday life. And you've always had a way of taking what is in the ancient Torah and making it relevant to our lives today. And we're somewhat similar ages. So, when you relate, and I guess at each decade you've been, you relate to the Torah differently. And so I always appreciate your insights. They're always relevant to my life today. So thank you. That's always been your gift. You've gone through the temple doing many things, fundraising, growing it. When you wrote your letter this morning, I wasn't surprised with what I read because that's exactly what I've imagined. It's been appreciated and clear to all of us, all that you've given and all the many facets of what you've done for the temple. But I feel like your core gift has always been how you've been able to make the Torah relevant and a helpful guide for our everyday life. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. And that I also feel like if a rabbi doesn't do that, then what is the point really? Because if we're not Torah centric, if we can't find our lives in the Torah, and if we can't find the Torah in our lives, then we're just a social club. And there's more to being a Jew than Nate and Al's. Especially now since the food's terrible. But I digress. Rebecca, go ahead.
I just want to add that in order to act on agency, wouldn't it be necessary to have a sense of a feeling of security, not only within yourself, but within the people around you? So like Nachem couldn't have walked into that water unless he felt secure about maybe perhaps his swimming skills. I don't know. Of security to be able to.
Well, there is another side to it, Rebecca, which I've shared with.
Thank you.
There is another side to it, which. There is another side to it that I have shared with people many times. Some of it, ultimately, much of life comes down to betting on yourself, to faith in yourself, And there's this Yiddish expression, which I love, which says, when you must, you can. I have seen people get through such difficult things, and not because they are superhuman, because they are human. We all have this extraordinary ability when we must, that we can. And I've said many times to people whose lives have changed, myself including, it is amazing what you can get used to. It really is. And, but ultimately, yes, I think that Nachshon is such an admirable character because ultimately there's this duality of faith. Faith requires faith in God, however you understand that word, and faith in oneself. It requires acceptance and agency. The older I get, at some point, I hope I can write about this. The older I get, the more I realize that that everything is sustained by the tension between dualities, and that we have control and no control, agency and no agency. That betting on ourselves is important, but we also have to be able to bet on something beyond and above ourselves. The longer I live, the more I realize that these dualities are actually, I kind of think of them like poles that hold this high wire, and that life is this dance on this high wire pole, on this high wire, being taut, T-A-U-G-H-T, taut. Well, is that how you spell it? I don't know. Tightened, being tight because of these irreconcilable dualities. I know I'm getting a little trippy now, but I hope you understand what I mean. And let's have Penina. Then I want to go on to some more text. Go ahead, Penina.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Number one, I understand the way my teacher told me that there was research done into it. They didn't swim to the depth. The swimming was done, or the walking was done kind of like on the side. So there was an area where it's not so deep. That's number one. Number two, it's very correct that you said when there is a need to survive, you do it, because I knew two brothers, twins. They were on the boat that the British turned back to, was supposed to go back to Germany, that they didn't let them stay, turned them back. They jumped off the ship and they swam all the way to the shores and got smuggled at night with Haganah through the British barricade there, and went in, and the Haganah used to come at night. I saw them sitting, a group of people in my nursery school. I came to school, I was 6.5, and I remember it till today. And I saw people laying with gray blankets and benches. And they told me, go home, there is no class today. Go home, in Hebrew, of course. And then I looked, I was curious, and I saw them laying there with gray blankets. They were waiting for the Haganah to come at night to take them into the kibbutzim, because I don't know, in a weird way, the kibbutzim was a safe place. If you had a wall and you had a water tower, they couldn't take it down. It was an establishment.
Yeah.
So they apparently they couldn't tell, or they didn't know how many people were there. I don't know how it worked, but they were safe once they got into the kibbutzim inland. So I actually saw those people with my own eyes, and I knew that, like I said, two brothers, Sam and what was the other one? Binyamin and Shmuel, Sam and Benjamin. And they survived. They became bricklayers in Israel, builders, and lived till good old age with a lot of kids and a lot of grandchildren. So when you have to do something and you want it, you do it.
And sometimes you die trying.
Yep.
And it's the trying that matters.
Yep.
I mean, both metaphorically and literally. Now, we're almost out of time. So I want to answer Gay's question in the chat, which I thought, was a good question. Like, it takes so little time. We're jumping ahead now, but it takes so little time to walk literally from Egypt to Israel. I mean, a couple of days, maybe. And I've done years ago, we had a temple trip where we started in Cairo at the pyramids, then we went through the Sinai, and then we went into the Negev and had a Passover Seder in a Bedouin tent in the Negev. So we kind of retraced
Oh, wow.
the mythology. Now,
You've seen the pyramids?
There are a couple of, there's one explanation within the Torah, Gay, about why the 40 years in the wilderness, which is the one most people know, which is that this generation of Israelites, when they heard that the residents of Canaan, which would become Israel, were fierce giant people, and the 10 of the 12 spies said, we felt like grasshoppers, and God became so angry because they didn't have faith in their own agency and in God's promise. And God basically says, these people have the mentality of slaves. They will never, ever get over it. They were whining about how much better life was in Egypt and slavery. They all need to die out except the 2 spies who were optimistic, Joshua and Caleb. This whole generation has to die in the desert because they are unfit for freedom. But in the commentaries for this Torah portion, the Rambam, Moses Maimonides, who lived about 850 years ago, he offers a different theory than the Torah's own explanation, which is that the people needed 40 years in the desert to toughen them and prepare them for the task of possessing the land of Israel and holding it. That over 400 years of slavery, they had become dependent and soft, and that they needed, in essence, 40 years of basic training in order to toughen themselves for freedom and the price of freedom. So I look, no one knows for sure, but it is interesting that this was the Rambam's his point of view, was that 40 years in the desert was an important part of the preparation for being a free Jewish people.
31 years is what you died.
31 years.
31 years of this. 31. Yeah. But I just want to thank you for what you just said, because I see the pyramids along. I just swear to God. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah. Sometimes we need to be in the desert. Now, I think, let me just see, because now we're 2 minutes overtime, and since I announced they don't pay me overtime anymore, so I'm kidding. All right, so let me end with this. I am going to continue to teach and preach and write and be your rabbi, and we're all going to do the right thing for our community, because we all love our community. If you want to reach out to me separately, it might take me a few days because the inbox is pretty full, but please feel free. If you have any concerns or anything at all, just reach out, email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I work my way, through the emails. And I want to wish everybody, I want to wish everybody really a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom to you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you. Boy, we're going to miss. Oh, I just love that man and his wife and his kids. What a joy. Y'all had him all these years. I've only had him 1 year. Only 1 year. Best year of my life. Y'all, Shabbat Shalom. See you tonight. I got to go. See the pyramids along the night. Wow. Later. Love you.
Okay. Stop video.